What's up, guys? I'm Sean from Srkcycles with an awesome 2017 Victory Octane. Let me tell you guys all about it. In 2017, before Polaris decided to drop the Victory line, they made a bona fide Harley-Davidson killer. Now, when you compare the Harley line versus the Victory line, you know, let's look at a cross-country tour versus a ultra classic. They're different, there's benefits to both. I could see why some people might choose one over the other one. But when you compare this to what Victory was comparing us to, a Sportster, there was just no comparison. This was just hands down the better of the motorcycles, and ultimately, this is what Harley-Davidson should be looking for as inspiration of what their Sportster should be like. And with an MSRP of $10,500, this thing was $1,000 cheaper than the 1200 Sportster. 1200 cc's, 104 horsepower, and weighing at 545 pounds.
I love the simplistic, modern yet classic styling of this bike. I know that might sound like a total oxymoron. This is a bike that, you know, in 20-30 years down the road, people are going to be looking for these things. I can just guarantee it. Partly because this is the same year that they closed the doors and stopped production on Victory. This is kind of a strange thing. A lot of times when companies just stop and they shut down, it's because they weren't doing that great. Victory was making headway. They were pooling the market. They were growing. It was just Polaris wanted to spend their time and energy on the Indian line. This is a cool bike.
Now, Polaris pulled out all the marketing stunts when they released this bike. This bike was not meant to be a starter bike or a beginner bike or a girl's bike. Kind of a lot of the things that some people look at the Sportster as. This bike was made to be a super fun, badass, performance, awesome bike and the perfect accessory next to your current motorcycles, but also a perfect standalone bike. And how they portrayed that was using the Victory Octane to beat the Guinness Book records for the longest burnout ever done on a motorcycle at just over 2 miles. And here's a quote from one of the guys that did it. "It feels like this bike was literally designed to do burnouts." And if you're wondering how long the tires last on this bike, well, the longest, maybe 10,000 miles, the shortest, 2 miles, 1,344 feet. This 1200 cc, 548 pound monster is designed to bring enjoyment to any rider, not just to be a starter bike or a bike that you grow out of, but to be the go-to bike that you grow and hone your skills into the skilled rider that you want to become. Now, the Octane, at first glance, it does share a lot of similarities with the Indian Scout, but then when you actually look a little bit deeper, they really are completely different bikes. Polaris said that they only share 30% of the parts. The parts that they do not share that are different include the wheels, the tires, the fork rake, the pegs, the frame, the rear shock, any engine components and casings, which is basically the entire bike. You know what I mean? Maybe this might look the same, but they really are different bikes. And a lot of the guys who compared the Indian Scout to this said that this is what the Indian Scout should have been. Now, I've ridden the Indian Scout. I thought it was a great bike. This thing is also just a blast to drive. Interesting little side note, in 2017, before Polaris told their dealerships that they were shutting down, and Polaris told their dealerships in the same way that we found out from reading articles on the line, Srkcycles sold more Victories than the average Victory dealership. Another difference between the Octane and the Scout was the Scout came in 2 different versions. The Scout came in the regular Scout, which was a 1200, and they also came in the Scout 60, which was a 1000. The Octane just came in one awesome, amazing, spectacular version.
It feels incredibly light. I mean, this thing feels like sport bike nimble. The pegs are mounted pretty high. I'll hit this next turn. I'll try to get pretty low, see if I can touch the peg. Now, this bike is on the smaller side of motorcycles. I'm 6'2". I don't feel like I'm too big for this thing. I feel very comfortable. They made these bars that you can move them up if you want them more up here or move them back. I think they're very comfortable just the way they are. This bike came with no option with mid-range controls. It was forward controls or it was nothing. Yep, drag a little boot right there. Just getting up to the speed limit. What blows my mind is how much bike you're getting for the money. If you can find these Octanes they're cheap. I mean, they're really, really cheap. Now, the Octane only came in a 1200, where the Indian Scout, and I know when you look at, the Indians are not the same as the Victories. There are some similarities. I think the most similar motorcycle they've ever made was the Scout and the Octane. The Scout 1200 and the Octane. It's very, very similar. You look at the frame and everything. And I don't have one that I can compare them directly, but they look really, really similar.
So let's talk about Operation Octane. Operation Octane was another marketing strategy that Polaris used to try to pump up the excitement. And what they did was they had 20 dealers from all over the world to customize and modify the Octane, and then they were going to get compared to each other, and anyone could vote for it, and the winner got $5,000. But honestly, that sounds like such a small amount of money. You know what I mean? And then the second place got $3,000. I'm sure they spent like $10,000 on each of these bikes. What you notice when you jump on the bike, you instantly notice that it does have forward controls. Instead of controls down mid-range, it's up here. I'm 6'2", I feel pretty comfortable on the bike. You can tilt the handlebars up. I think they're just perfect the way they are. It is a very comfortable bike. If you're wondering why there's no Speedo on it, it's kind of a crazy story. We bought the bike with no Speedo. Like all Victories, I think, the key is on the other side. It's on the left side in between the cylinders. And now, let's go to the test drive.
This is my first time driving an Octane. I've driven a lot of Scouts, which I love the Scout, but from all that I hear, everyone says the Octane is better, and I'm pumped. I love the way this bike feels. Do not look at this bike and be like, oh, it's just a small little bike and the bike I want to get is bigger. This is what the Sportster should be, and this is what the Scout is. This just feels awesome. Everything about this. It's a cool, simplistic, it's a light bike. You can really just throw it around in the corners. Whoa, it's fast. This bike moves. The clutch is just light, very, very light. Shifting is light and precise. When I first got on it, I felt the throttle by wire. I was like, it seems a little loose, like, seems a little disconnected, you know? But after riding it for 30 seconds, I do not feel that way anymore. All right, guys, little words of wisdom, Galatians 1:10. For am I now seeking the favor of men or of God? Or am I striving to please men? If I were still trying to please men, I would not be a bondservant of Christ. That is Paul talking to the Galatians about not trying to please men. The crummy thing is I can't actually do a 0 to 60 run because when we bought this bike, it just doesn't have a speedometer. So what do? I can't put my phone up there. We'll just guess. Ha ha! Wow! Man, that thing pulled. That was awesome. This is just this takes a different, and I really like what Victory did here. This took a different model and a different idea with the muscle bike and kind of the hot rod bike, and this definitely was a hot rod bike. When Victory came out, when they were just doing, I think they won like the longest burnout competition with this bike. Instead of making a big bike with a big powerful engine, they made a small bike with a big powerful engine, which is the definition of a hot rod. I think this thing's a magnificent motorcycle and a blast to drive. I think there's a lot of garages out there that this bike would fit in. When I mean fit in, I mean like, it makes sense for a lot of people to own a bike just like this. I love it. Guys, if you're wondering what type of awesome glove you have to wear when you're riding an awesome motorcycle like this, bam, that's the M1 Moto Glove right here. One of the only motorcycle gloves lined with Kevlar. Now we're actually doing something from now until Cyber Monday 2019. Look on the website, bikesandbeardsgear.com. If you buy a set of these gloves, we're going to donate $20 to a youth ministry, an at-risk youth ministry. And we're going to buy them a bunch of toys. It's going to be awesome. We're going to make a video about it. So if you were thinking, I need some gloves, or I want to donate, That's a great time. Now listen, I know it's a Black Friday thing and you're not getting the discount, but we're giving the discount to some kids. So check that out, link below. We'll see you guys later. Don't forget, it's not what you're riding, but where you're going. This bike is currently for sale at srkcycles.com, and it's a really good deal because it has no speedo.